actually realise to do that.
So the point about today is to share our experience of displaying miniatures in the temporary exhibition we did in 2019, and then also planning the galleries for next year. So we're kind of sharing our experience and what we learned and the way we feel that audiences interacted with miniatures in good ways and less good ways, so that other institutions can benefit from what we've been able to do here. We've had partners from the Victoria and Albert Museum and also the Royal Collection here today, giving us benefit of what they've discovered, feeding in their expertise in terms of the research on those collections.
So the idea is that people who aren't necessarily used to handling and looking at portrait miniatures get enough knowledge to be able to kind of look more confidently at a portrait miniature, recognise what period it's from, recognise how it's been painted, and also to be able to recognise problems.
You need to have good documentation. So if someone...
They can get some benefit from my expertise as a conservator, explaining how miniatures may have been painted. And I think that informs what to look for in terms of deterioration and how you can conserve the miniatures for future generations. So the more you know about how something was made, the better your ability to be able to deal with the problems.
That Nawab had as his court painter an English.
It's been fabulous to be part of this skills sharing workshop and look at examples of miniatures, take some pieces out from the National Portrait Gallery collection and actually look at them, you know, in great detail. It throws up all sorts of other questions that you might not have thought about. At one point yesterday we were looking at storage of miniatures and what kind of bespoke boxes they should be in, and it led to a conversation about disaster planning and how you would prepare and what you might have in terms of boxes and plasterzote and all kinds of things that, again, it sparks other conversations.
We store our miniatures in boxes made from archival card, lined with plasterzote, which is a high-density acid-free foam cut to fit the miniature. The miniature is wrapped in soft, acid-free tissue. It's been very useful, exchange back and forth. We have the opportunity to rethink our displays, and it's really helpful for us to both share what we're learning and find out from other institutions what they've learned. And I hope that it will mean that we can have more prominent miniature displays that people are more engaged with all over the country.
We're very lucky because we have on loan to us a very large collection of miniatures, and we're looking now at new ways to display them.
We find that most visitors don't look at our miniatures, don't get to enjoy them. So by having a dedicated gallery where all the display conditions are organised around how the miniatures look best, we're hoping that people will get more interested in them and will be able to engage with them better.
With a razor blade?
Yeah.
I think in the past miniatures have been seen as a lesser art form, if you like, compared to, say, large oil paintings, and so they've been often ignored, or they're seen as kind of sometimes almost like a stamp collection. You can have lots of them and very little focus on the individual portrait miniature. So I think there needs to be more knowledge given out there to people so they can understand better how wonderful these objects are and how precious they are, but also how fragile they are. And there's a particular need to be able to recognise problems and know how to deal with them.
Looking at care of collections and best practice, standards, things that we should be obviously aspiring to as an accredited gallery in Warwickshire, plus ways that we can engage our visitors more with the collection, opportunities for thinking about the future, you know, different new kind of projects that might occur, how we would then mix in that portrait miniature collection with that. Perhaps we could think about them as the starting point for some of our temporary exhibitions.
A lot of people are a little bit nervous about handling them and how to deal with them because they consist of lots of different materials. It's not just the paint layer, you've got the locket made of metal, you've got the cover glass, and then the support may be vellum, it may be ivory. All these things are different areas of specialisation. So a person who can deal with portrait miniatures needs a bit of knowledge about quite a few different materials.
The miniatures are very, very vulnerable to light. Because they're painted in watercolour, they will fade very quickly if they're in very high light levels. So we have to keep them at 50 lux, which is very low. And if you have objects at 50 lux in a normal gallery, they just look very dim and dull. So we're creating very dark ambient light conditions so that the miniatures will look brighter by comparison. And hopefully your eyes will then adjust The challenge in a permanent gallery situation is that you're going from very brightly lit, top-lit galleries with daylight in them into a dark space, but then your eyes adjust. And if the main light source in the room is around the miniatures, then the miniatures will look brighter by comparison with everything else. We found that it's easier for visitors to engage with miniatures if they're displayed in small groups, in showcases with internal lighting. The miniatures can only be displayed for a limited time. Spaces need to be made below the cases so that wheelchair users can get as close as possible. The lighting also needs to be angled so that reflections don't block their view.
It will help give me confidence when speaking to colleagues to explain the reasons for these various care of collections points about, this has now been on display for a year, we need to take it off display, it needs to be protected from light damage, this is why, this is what for, and the fact that a national institution does things in this particular way, we should be doing that too.
It's a very exciting thing to be a part of. I've not been involved in this kind of skill sharing process before, and it's been really, really productive for everybody, I think.
Almost all of my questions that I came down with on the train on the Monday morning have been answered now, so yeah, I'm quite sure they will be by the end of the day. It's been fabulous. I had to pinch myself yesterday. I never have a chance to do something like this, so it's been brilliant.
So Hume painted the miniature that he's wearing, but also the miniature of him wearing the miniature. Yeah, and also